Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. This is a hurling edition. And Luke, we truly have witnessed greatness. Limerick beating Cork in the All Ireland final by 3 goals and 32 points to 1 goal and 22 points. They scored 3-18 in the first half. It's the most complete performance I think I've ever seen. Yeah, and Limerick just put their legacy in stone yesterday.
Yeah, completely. And I think I think you summed up pretty well there. It was kind of surreal watching that first half in particular, where I don't know. I think I haven't really ever seen such dominance. And if you think about it, the stakes that we're at here as well, All Ireland final day, where supposedly the two best teams in the country are placing off against each other, and for one team to be so dominant, it was unbelievable, really. And look, it's kind of, you come out of that game looking afterwards, and there's nearly an air of invincibility about them, and they just nearly, like, on that form, they look unbeatable.
Yeah, and they hit the ground running. I mean, Cian Lynch got the points after 12 seconds, his first touch of the ball. We'll get on to his performance. He was amazing. And then I know Cork responded with a point of their own. Then Limerick got the goal. Gerard Hegarty, brilliantly set up by Cian Lynch.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we'll probably get into his performance more so throughout the podcast as it goes on. But like, he was involved in absolutely everything. And I think, if we kind of start that, like, right from the off, he collected that ball, and within 10 seconds, they were a point up. And then you look at that as well, the goal that came straight away from Hegarty as well. He came out of it after Luke Meade kind of flicked the ball back into play. But look, it was first of all, I think it was an electric start to the game, where you were kind of a bit afraid when the goal went in, it was going to be a runaway. And then Shane Kingston goes up and scores a wonder goal. And then you kind of hope that there's a contest, but from there on, Limerick kind of just put their foot down, and it was unplayable stuff.
Yeah, and it shows me that Limerick are almost kind of above momentum somehow, because I'll always think in sports that, like, the counter of the counter is the best for momentum. When you think that, you've got the goal, so Limerick get the goal with Hegarty. And in sports, I've always noticed that when you get a goal immediately back, it's almost like you take the other team's momentum and double it in your favour. So for Cork to go down and get the goal straight after Limerick had got their goal, you're almost like, well, the momentum is 100% with Cork. And then for Limerick to take over the game the way they did after that goal is unbelievable. The key stat was after 14 minutes, well, coming up to 14 minutes, Limerick were 1-5 to 1-4 ahead. Jack O'Connor got a point to bring Cork back within one. And then Aaron Gillane got his goal. And I mean, we hate to say we told you so, but you called it perfectly well. You said Robert Downey does not have the pace to be dealing with someone like Seamus Flanagan. And the way that Flanagan lost Robert Downey to set up the opportunity for Aaron Gillane's goal just really showed the lack of pace that Downey has to keep up with the Seamus Flanagan.
They weren't really helped, though, by the setup on the day, though, as well, because it was a situation where you knew that the three fellas in the inside line for Limerick, Casey, Gillane and Flanagan, are all well able to come out and win their own ball, kind of. And once the ball is right going into them, they're just impossible to stop, really. And so first of all, kind of Cork, they didn't have Mark Coleman sitting in the pocket, kind of cutting out that diagonal pass. Instead, he was up marking Cian Lynch. And then as a result, once Cadigan and Tim O'Mahony went out to mark their men, there was an unbelievable amount of space. And then once there was no pressure on the ball coming in, I don't think the full back line had a hope, really. And especially considering, like, Downey's better kind of with contested ball. So look, they never gave him a chance really to do what he does best at all here. So look, I think the setup, the kind of setup has a lot to answer for as well. But look, the quality of execution by Limerick was just exceptional, really. And the bit to note as well is that even though they're winning every ball in there, they were very efficient with their scoring as well. And look, they 3-18 at half time. They really made them pay for what was kind of a poor enough setup by Cork in the first half.
Yeah, and as I said about, Limerick taking the game away from Cork after, Cork seemed to be keeping in touch with them. 14 minutes, it was 1-5 to 1-4. 24 minutes, it was 2-12 to 1-7 to Limerick. And all of Limerick's 2-12 came from play. Peter Casey, he made it 2-12 to 1-7 on 24 minutes with that point. And when I'm saying that point, the one that sticks out. I know he hit 5 first half points, but the one where he sent Niall O'Leary to the shops, the one where he did the little shimmy dancing feet and a superb finish. He had an outstanding game up until he got his injury. And remember, this was a guy who was initially suspended for this game. Getting that suspension overturned, I think that helped Limerick a lot more than people will give credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would have been an interesting one that if he stayed fit there, what kind of level of scoring could he have got to, like, because 5 points, it was within 24 minutes, those 5 scores as well. And with the way he was going, like, he could have easily got to about 10 points with the way he was playing. He was absolutely out of his skin, kind of. And yeah, look, I think that was the kind of key. It was the ball going into him, into Flanagan, into Galan. It was all just being won first time, and just Cork had no answer to it whatsoever. And look, you have to credit the likes of Will O'Donoghue and Darragh Donovan, Declan Hammond playing the ball in, because it was absolutely perfect. And look, it was just champagne hurling, I suppose, at times.
It was premium level, and the last few minutes of the first half was when Limerick again stepped up another gear to put themselves even further away from Cork. There was a minute spell there up on 33 minutes where Diarmaid Byrnes landed a point from a huge distance out, as Diarmaid Byrnes does pretty much in every single game that he plays. And then the puck out from Patrick Collins is won by Limerick, and Garrod Hegarty put the ball straight back over the bar. It was like, what is this? Like, they're absolute freaks in the best kind of way. They are just supernatural hurlers. They're so good. Every single player on that team is unbelievable. And then, of course, the goal. Again, Garrod Hegarty, right on 35 minutes. Cian Lynch gets the ball. He's clearly, in my opinion, fouled by Mark Coleman. He still manages to get the hand pass away to Hegarty. And the second that he gets that hand pass away, you just know what's going to happen. Hegarty, brilliant sidestep, and then bangs it low into the corner of Patrick Collins' net. Third goal for Limerick. And you know that the game is finished at that point, because there's no way that an inexperienced Cork team, as good as they've looked throughout the entire championship, there's no way that they're coming back against one of the best teams that I've ever seen. And then Barry Nash's point right on half time, their left corner back, that just summed it up. It was a real tour de force throughout the whole first half. Limerick that's the best first half performance that I've ever seen. 318 to 111 at half time. Like, if you're in the Cork dressing room, how do you even go about making out like you still have a chance?
Yeah, look, it was the worrying thing for Cork is there was a lot of optimism around the county after some great results, kind of in underage and stuff as well. But the problem is that, like, the nature of this defeat and the psychological damage that this is going to have done is going to cause huge problems for them going forward. And, like, they're going to be coming out of that game thinking like there's no way that we can beat this team. And just kind of to see what happens, like, I think it's nearly safe to say they were beating pretty much every 50-50 battle across the entire field. Limerick won. And yeah, look, it must seem impossible for them, because, like, you're looking at a situation, you saw where Will O'Donoghue and Darragh Donovan, the level of work that they're doing as well. And then you've got the two wing forwards dropping back that midfield line, and you have to try and play through them with the style of hurling they're playing, the short passing. And that's the line of players that you have to play through. And it just seems an impossible task, really.
Yeah, no, and definitely their style of hurling was definitely exposed by Limerick, in my opinion. I think Limerick are just superior in every way. And I know the way that you were talking about Mark Coleman not being there to sweep up and collect the ball that Limerick like to hit across into Galan and Flanagan. But then if they drop Coleman back, it would have been very similar to the Waterford game, where Limerick completely dominated around the middle because Waterford had dropped an extra player back and Limerick had more bodies there. You just can't beat them right now. They're just that good. And what was even more scary is they're not going away anytime soon. When you look at the age profile of the team, they're all still very young. They're coming into their prime, a lot of them. And you look at the likes of Colin Cochran coming off the bench. Like, this team, not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and look, I thought that was actually an interesting one by Kylie there, by bringing Cochran on there at the end as well. It's kind of a little bit of a reminder to Cork that there's more to come from this Limerick team as well. For all your young kind of talent that's coming through, we've got our own fellas as well coming. They didn't even put on Cathal O'Neill as well. So I think there's only one of the starting members of the 15, being Nicky Quaid, is over 30 years old. So I think that sums it up. And look, if they can keep their heads right, like, this is gonna be a dynasty hurling team. Like,
yeah, and this will be one of the teams for the ages. I think they already are, you could say. But their work rate as well is one of the key points about how good that they are. They managed to work so hard. I mean, the 48-minute Cian Lynch's point, that was one score which really stood out to me. The level of work rate that Diarmaid Byrnes did initially in turning over the ball, and the level of work that Aaron Galan did to manage to set that. That was the one where he kind of slipped a little bit as he was throwing the hand pass back out to Cian Lynch. But the work that he went through to create that chance for Cian Lynch, absolutely superb. And then Lynch bangs it over the bar. and it was just relentless. It never, ever went away. I thought Kieran Kingston, after the game, he kind of put it into perspective. He said it was like trying to stop the tide with a bucket. And that's a perfect description. Limerick were just coming from all angles at Cork, and Cork were just completely powerless to stop it. And yeah, I've never seen like a more complete performance in an All-Ireland final. I know people talk about the Kilkenny versus Waterford game, and that obviously is right up there as well. But Limerick scored more against Cork than Kilkenny did against Waterford. So for me, this Limerick performance is better because of the history that's on the line as well. Limerick, looking to become the first Limerick team to do back-to-back All-Irelands. You can't understate, the weight of history on them. And then to go out and to put Cork away like that, just remarkable.
I suppose that was the initial time thing that came to a lot of people after the game, was that I suppose that like they were trying to compare this team to other performances as well. And it's just when you get that level of dominance in the game, people have done comparisons to Kilkenny are naturally going to come. And look, I'll tell you what though, like if they keep performing to this level, the comparisons aren't going to stop anytime soon as well though. And like it just seems very hard to imagine a team being able to get to that level within the next year even as well. So yeah, look, it's theirs to lose again next year, I think. And yeah, it's just it was just remarkable kind of really performance in the end. And I suppose nearly at halftime, kind of like you're nearly just in awe, kind of sitting in awe for the first few minutes of halftime after what you just saw, because everything is to the hand. The first touch is just perfect every single time, and in the first half they weren't even missing as well. So it's yeah, look, there's no answer for that. You can set up whatever way you want. You can choose different tactics. You can play different players wherever. But if you're going to be just outworked in midfield, you're coming up against players that are bigger than you and more skillful than you. You don't have much chance.
Yeah, and one stat which was absolutely bizarre was Limerick managed to get off 58 shots in the match, which is remarkable. 58 shots. Like, if your conversion rate is anywhere near as good as Limerick's, you are going to win the game. Aaron Gillane and Seamus Flanagan inside in the full forward line were absolutely dominant the whole game, particularly in the second half. Gillane was just ridiculous. And Cian Lynch, that's probably the best performance we've ever seen from him, even though like he's given some unbelievable displays as well. And he must do some sort of MMA. This was one of the funniest moments I've ever seen. He must do some sort of judo or martial arts, because the way he managed to throw Tim O'Mahony over his shoulder, like, I was like, how strong is this guy? He managed to toss Tim O'Mahony over his shoulder as if Tim O'Mahony was a child, and somehow managed to get away with only really like a little slap on the wrist. Like, for what Tim O'Mahony landed on the back of his head, it was absolutely hilarious to look at on the replays.
It nearly kind of was a representation of how the game went, I suppose, that moment. And it was just that Limerick absolutely bullied Cork, even in the kind of the physical moments as well, kind of where when it was kind of boiling over a little bit. Limerick just they kind of seemed a bit more kind of on top just in every aspect really. And yeah, it got to a stage in the second half where there was clearly a bit of frustration and stuff, and there was kind of some kind of disappointing scenes, I suppose, like with the broken hurl. But look, I think otherwise than that, like Limerick, like they do play on the line a little bit. Like some of the tackling can be a bit borderline, and there was a few high ones again. Lynch got away with like what was a very, very high tackle as well. But look, that's just how they play. That's just how they tackle. And look, they know that they're going to concede yellow cards because of the nature of their tackling. They're tackling with their hands, and they're tackling kind of chest height and above as well, and stuff like that to try and slow progress down. And we're seeing this a lot, and it absolutely saps the life out of the opposition when they're being hit by that kind of intensity, being pushed back, being driven back by figures like the size of Hegarty, the size of Tom Morrissey, the size of even Lynch himself as well. So it's you can clearly see that they early on the intensity they bring, it kind of brings a lot of punishment in the opposition, and no team at the moment really has the conditioning to weather that kind of level of tackling, that level of enthusiasm. And yeah, so that's pretty much the basis on how they're kind of going around winning these games.
Yeah, the physical size and their stature and their power is, in my mind, the cement holding the wall together. Like their physical fitness, their power, their pace, their athleticism is just the best that we've ever seen, to be honest. Kilkenny, I think the comparisons with the Kilkenny team of the 2000s is definitely real at this point. But I think that Kilkenny team was more risky hurlers. They were more skillful maybe than this Limerick team. But this Limerick team, their power, their pace, their athleticism is way better than that Kilkenny team, in my opinion, which is why a matchup with a prime Kilkenny and this prime Limerick team would be mouth-watering to look at. But the last 5 minutes as well of this All-Ireland final between Limerick and Cork, it was like a coronation for Limerick. The points, like Pat Ryan came off the bench, got a point. Keane Lynch hit 2 unbelievable points in particular. It was just wonderful to see. And to finish out the game, 332 to 122, just a remarkable game. And how is it possible? We were talking, like the Sunday game was talking after, and they were saying, is it possible to do any better than that?
It's a tough one to know because, like you saw as well earlier in the season, Cork, they did an awful lot better kind of in that game and lost by 8 points. Probably wasn't even an 8-point loss. But I think when you get Limerick are probably the ultimate Croke Park team. And I think the size of the pitch, the level of space in front of the full forward line that you're going to get, it's very, very hard to imagine a team being able to beat them there for a while now. Like maybe in a tighter pitch in there, if you drag them into a war, maybe that they, like you never know kind of what happens maybe. But yeah, in Croke Park, once they get to Croke Park, I just can't see it with the way that they're set up at the moment and the way all the other opposition in the country are right now. I just can't see them losing right now in a big championship game when they're fired up for it. But it's that's what I'm saying though, is that like there is this definite air kind of nearly being unbeatable at the moment, and but just imagine like every other county coming into a game against Limerick psychologically how they're coming into it. I think going into this game, kind of Cork had it in their head. They didn't fully believe that they could beat Limerick, I don't think. You look at the kind of the uncharacteristic errors, I suppose, an awful lot of drop ball in the first half as well, coming out of defence. Like with this style of play, the going to be the risky kind of through the lines passing. The first touch needs to be absolutely perfect. And you see Limerick, it's to the hands every single time, sharp hand passes. And then Cork are spilling easy ball, kind of coming out of defence and then getting turned over. I suppose you've no chance going into a game when you're kind of that level of nervousness coming into a game when you're already, the odds are kind of stacked 70-30 against you.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you've said. But that wasn't the only thing that went wrong for Cork, in my opinion. I think Robert Downey got, completely bullied by Seamus Flanagan in the full back line. But I don't like a lot of things that are being said about Downey now. A bit like he should never have been in there and blah, blah, blah. He had an outstanding game in the semi-final. He just came up against a fantastic full forward line in Flanagan and Gillane. Pick your poison. Which one do you want? Gillane did outstanding as well. Sean O'Donoghue found it really tough on him. Niall O'Leary as well on Peter Casey. Peter Casey gave him a torrid time before his injury. Do you think there's anything else? Like, is there anything else that jumps out to you that Cork got wrong?
Yeah, well, look, going back into the Robert Downey thing again there as well, though, was that, like, I said it again earlier, but, like, he got absolutely no help. I think the real problem there was the fellas around midfield and the half-forward line, the pressure that they were putting on kind of the ball coming in, and it was just kind of, there was nowhere near good enough kind of pressure. You compare Cork playing long ball against their full forward line the first half, and it was half the ball that was going in was 50-50 ball into O'Connor and Horgan because Cork just did not have the time to stop and pick out a diagonal crossfield ball that would have suited the two of them inside. And instead, it was lumped up, and then pretty much every time Sean Finn came out of it when it came out of those rucks with the ball in his hand. So that I think the biggest issue I think for Cork was actually the players out the field kind of not winning their battles and not competing enough out there and stopping the ball coming in. Because I think at that stage, with the level of space that's in front of the whole forward line, I don't think any fullback in line in the country could have slowed down Limerick much there. But yeah, I think to answer the question on what Cork could have done differently, I think they were probably a little bit naive. They kind of nearly went back to playing with 6 backs. I think they probably looked at Waterford the last day and saw that they played with 7 backs and then said, yeah, look, we're not, this is going to affect our scoring and we won't be able to score enough. But look, we see what happens when you play Limerick man on man at the back. Is that what they put 3 goals and 28 from play past you? So yeah, look, I think what they had to do there was Mark Coleman kind of sitting back into the pocket and then Luke Meade coming back and tracing Keane Lynch when he goes out roaming. So that's what I would have done, and I would have had Robbie O'Flynn in one half forward position and Conor Cahalane or Darragh Fitzgibbon, whoever you're having out there, dropping back into kind of the positions where the likes of Hegarty and Morrissey would be, and just clogging up space and stopping ball going in. you need to have somebody positioned in there in front of where Galan would be running to, and somebody in front of where Flanagan be running to. I know that you're going to be taking fellas out of your forward line, but you just have to rely on their level of fitness to get up and down the field from there. And I think that's probably the only way Cork could have done it. Probably still wouldn't have had enough to even get too close to them, but I think it would have been an awful lot tighter, and that they wouldn't have conceded a record scoreline if they did do that.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you've said there. The main bit that I agree with is about the quality of ball getting delivered into the forwards. You have to stop Declan Hannon, Will O'Donoghue, Darragh O'Donovan from being able to play this 70-30 ball in favour of Galan and in favour of Flanagan, because Robert Downey looked so good on TJ Reid in the semi-final against Kilkenny. But one of the main reasons that he looked so good, as well as his own performance, was because the Cork pressure on the Kilkenny delivery was ramped up, and Kilkenny weren't being able to get this quality ball into TJ Reid like they usually were. And Robert Downey was then in a situation where it was a 50-50 or even 60-40 ball in his favour, and he was winning it. But if you put any fullback on Seamus Flanagan or Aaron Galan, and then you give them, a 30% chance of winning the ball, they're not going to win the ball. And once the ball gets into Seamus Flanagan's hand or into Aaron Galan's hand, the job is pretty much done. The quality of ball into the forwards has to be limited, because, letting Declan Hannon play the ball into Aaron Galan exactly where he wants it, or letting him play the ball into Seamus Flanagan exactly where he wants it, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, look, Cork, they didn't do enough. And I suppose maybe the alternative kind of approach to it is that by maybe if you drop the two wing forwards into the exact position where the diagonal ball is coming in, though, and you have them inside around 45, just in front of that space, so that there is zero space for Limerick's forwards in there. So then the idea being that you leave the ball, you let Kyle Hayes have the ball, you let Diarmaid Byrnes have the ball, and yeah, they're going to land some long range points, but the two of them do hit an awful lot of wides as well. So that's probably the way that maybe a team could go about it next year, is that maybe, I don't know, like it would be kind of nearly like Davy Fitz tactics, I suppose, a little bit. But yeah, it's just that you might have to force them to just kind of take away the inside altogether, take away Galan from them, and take away that full forward line, and just say you're going to have to beat us by long range points, no goals. You're just going to have to beat us by hitting long range points, and then you're just going to have to hope that it's going to be one of their off days where they hit more wides. But yeah, I think that's probably the best chance somebody has of getting them. But then by doing that, you're taking away from your own forward line. So look, it's just you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't against this team right now.
Yeah, definitely, and they've assured their place really in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. So guys, that is our match review of the All-Ireland Hurling Final of 2021. A day when Limerick put their legacy in stone by absolutely hammering Cork by 3 goals and 32 points to 1 goal and 22 points. Okay, guys, don't forget to catch our Team of the Year as well. We'll be doing our own Play On GAA All-Stars for the hurling season of 2021. Don't forget to catch our football content of the rest of the season. Take care.